Hey everyone, it's Mallory here with All About Cats, and in this week's video we're taking a look at my top 5 recommendations for the best human-grade cat food you can buy. So first off, what is human-grade cat food and why would you want it as opposed to regular cat food? So in order to understand this, we need to get a little bit of background on pet food regulation. Obviously, this is a complex topic, and we could make a whole series of videos on the regulation of pet food ingredients and the manufacturing of these foods. But just for this video, we'll just need to focus on the difference between feed and food from a regulatory perspective. So in the United States, the FDA differentiates between feed and food. Feed refers to the types of ingredients that are used in the vast majority of pet foods, and food refers to the types of products that we're consuming. And this makes a pretty big difference in terms of the way that these ingredients and products are regulated, as well as the end product that ends up in your cat's bowl. I'll put some links in the description so you can learn further about what the difference between feed and food is. But for instance, the FDA allows that ingredients that would normally be used for food but have been contaminated can be diverted to use for animal feed. And up until 2019, animal feed could include meat from animals that had died from illness or were sick when they died, rather than normal, healthy, slaughtered animals. Again, this was changed in 2019, but it goes to show you that the standards that are applied to animal feed or animal feed ingredients are significantly different from those that would apply to human food. And we have all of these inspection processes and standards that will vary from company to company that will generally ensure that the food is safe for your cat, and any food that you're seeing on the market that's marketed as complete and balanced is going to be held to a certain set of standards in terms of nutritional completeness. But at the same time, again, there is a greater possibility that your cat's getting lower quality ingredients. And so in order to address this whole idea of human-grade cat food has come about. For a while, the definition of human-grade food was a little bit fuzzy, but a couple of years ago, the American Association of Feed Control Officials set forth a definition of human-grade food and rules on what a food would need to look like in order to be considered a human-grade product. I'll put a link to those guidelines in the description. In summary, they're saying that the food needs to be handled and processed according to human food regulations along every step of the way. So this includes the way that the ingredients are handled from the suppliers. It affects the way the foods are manufactured. They have to be made in a USDA inspected human food facility, so no pet food facilities can make human grade food. Food needs to be labeled clearly to say that it is made for pets but is human grade, and this also affects the way that the foods are being transported. Interestingly, we don't really tend to see dry foods that are human grade. All of the foods on this list are going to be wet products. Again, a human grade food is typically going to have higher quality ingredients compared to a feed grade food, but it's not necessarily better than a feed grade food. Again, this really depends on who's making the food and how the food is made. So in order to find some of the best human grade cat foods on the market, I referenced Susan Thixton's 2022 list of her picks for the best cat food on the market, which emphasizes human grade products. I also spent hours researching human-grade foods and the regulations behind this term, going in depth looking at the different brands that offer human-grade food and evaluating the nutrition, species appropriateness, and quality of the foods that they're offering. And then once I narrowed down my list a bit, I purchased these brands independently and tried them out with my cats. So based on all of that, I'm going to be talking to you about my top 5 recommendations, again, for the best human-grade cat food you can buy. So my first recommendation is Small's Fresh Cat Food. You've probably heard me mention this brand before on the channel. It's one of the few truly human-grade products out there, manufactured from human food-grade ingredients and then made in a human food facility in the United States. Their fresh foods are made primarily from animal ingredients with minimal plant inclusions, and they offer good quantities of protein and fat with not a ton of carbohydrates. So for instance, their ground bird recipe I'm highlighting here is primarily made from chicken thigh, breast, and liver with minimal amounts of plant ingredients. And then according to my lab test results, the food is 54% protein, 32% fat, and 7% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis. So overall, it's looking like a nice species-appropriate food made with really good ingredients. My cats really like this food, and I think that's something that sets it apart from the other human-grade foods on this list. I wasn't able to find any other human-grade foods my cats liked quite as much as this product. It has a really nice, fresh texture and taste and smell that both of my cats seem to love. My cats really like eating Smalls cat food, and it's won in a ton of different taste tests compared to other human-grade foods and other non-human-grade foods. So if you have a picky cat, you're looking for something they're really going to enjoy, Smalls has a good chance of satisfying that need. Like a lot of other fresh, homemade style foods, this product is only available according to a subscription, so you need to sign up and get regular shipments of the food. And your price per day is going to vary depending on how you set up that subscription, but it looks like it averages out to about $4.68 per day, so relatively expensive. It's certainly not a cheap food, but again, if you're looking for top-notch ingredients, top-notch manufacturing standards, and a food that cats really like eating, it could be a good option. And then my next recommendation, it has a similar format to Smalls in terms of the product type, so it's a fresh, homemade style food. In contrast to Smalls, you don't need to sign up for a subscription to get it. And it is the JustCats fish and chicken recipe. So you might be familiar with Just Food for Dogs. They also offer a food for cats, so that you have just one recipe. And it is this product primarily composed of a combination of wild-caught cod, sardines, some dried yucca root, and then chicken thighs, hearts, and liver, along with a vitamin and mineral blend. So on a dry matter basis, the food is about 56% protein, 24% fat, and 14% carbohydrates. So a little bit on the higher carbohydrate side compared to some really protein-rich, species-appropriate foods. But overall, that nutrient composition looks pretty good. And the food tends to be pretty palatable. So assuming that you have a cat who likes fish and can eat fish, this could be a good option. Now, again, they don't have the widest selection. You don't get a lot of variety. So it might not be the best choice for cats with food sensitivities, allergies, or who just want to have more flexibility in their diet. But given the ingredient quality and given the comparably good nutrition with a nice mix of species-appropriate ingredients, it could be a good choice. At about $4.48 per day, it is, like most human-grade foods, pretty expensive. If you're looking for an ethically sourced product, I will recommend Open Farm's wet cat food. So while Open Farm's dry foods are not fully human-grade, their wet foods are completely human grade. Their wet recipes are these loose kind of stew style foods that are packed in these Tetra Pak containers, which at select locations can be recycled. And continuing with that theme, Open Farms foods are made from what are supposed to be ethically sourced ingredients. So they're working with suppliers that comply with the standards established by various organizations like the Global Animal Partnership. Though their wet foods do regrettably contain legumes, they tend to be pretty species appropriate. So I have some concerns about including those legumes given the FDA's investigation into grain-free foods and some indications that legumes may be related to the issues with DCM in dogs. You might be willing to consider a food like this, and the food does seem to be pretty species appropriate, offering decent amounts of protein and fat from animal-derived ingredients. So according to my lab test results, the food is 53% protein, 19% fat, and 18% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis. Again, generally I would be looking for a food that's under 10% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis, so kind of high carb. And again, an unfortunate inclusion of legumes, but if your focus is on a combination of high quality ingredients, great traceability in sourcing, and an emphasis on ethical sourcing, Open Farms foods could be a good option. Another brand that offers really similar recipes to Open Farms, but which will appeal to somewhat different tastes and preferences, is Caru's Classic Stews. So Caru's Classic Stews are also these loose foods that are packed into Tetra Pak containers and which are, of course, human grade. Most of their foods are sourced from and manufactured in the United States, and they tend to emphasize a nice mix of animal ingredients. We're not seeing the inclusion of a lot of organ meats, and their foods don't seem to be quite as nutritionally dense as some of the fresh foods on this list. But they could be a good option, especially if your cat needs something a bit looser and likes that kind of stewy consistency. Their chicken recipe does feature chicken as the first ingredient, but it also contains some ingredients that don't really seem necessary, like tapioca starch, carrots, and sweet potato. And this ends up bumping the carbohydrate content up quite a bit. So we're seeing carbohydrate content ranging between this high 28 to 29%, down to about 24% at the lowest on a dry matter basis. So they're pretty high carbohydrate foods. This particular recipe is also about 50% protein and 14% fat on a dry matter basis. So we're looking at a moderately high protein food with sort of low fat content and really high carbohydrate content. So I know we're generally not recommending high carbohydrate foods, right? This is not going to be the best option, especially for cats who are overweight, prone to diabetes, or have diabetes. But the options when it comes to human grade food are kind of limited. So I did want to throw this in here and just mention it. It seemed to be a little bit more palatable than the Open Farm foods. So could be a good intermittent treat or something like that for cats who need something a little bit more lappable and easy to eat. Finally, my last recommendation is going to be kind of an honorable mention, and the reason why I can't recommend it as heartily as the others is just a palatability concern. So we're talking about Raised Rights fresh cat food. So this brand is doing a lot of cool things. They're working with veterinarian Dr. Karen Becker, who you're probably familiar with for her work on health education. And the foods offer great species-appropriate macronutrient distributions, nice inclusions of animal ingredients. So for example, their turkey recipe contains turkey thigh, turkey heart, turkey liver, and then an array of vegetables as well as cod liver oil. So they're getting most of those nutrients from whole ingredients rather than supplements. And overall, it seems to be a nice, nutritious food. Good macronutrient distribution at about 63% protein, 24% fat, and 3.5% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis. So excellent macronutrient distribution. But the food is just not that palatable. My cats wouldn't eat any of the recipes I got. So I tried out 4 different recipes, and I think it's that spearmint inclusion that just makes it smell very herbal and vegetal, and my cats just didn't like it. Another member of the editorial team at All About Cats tried this out with her cats. She had a similar experience. None of them would eat the food. So I have seen reviews from other people who say their cats will eat this food, and there is a chance, of course, that your cat will be into it, and if so, that's great, because this food has an excellent macronutrient distribution. It seems to come from a good company. They have good values and goals, and it seems like it could be a good option, but unfortunately, it's just, for me, it just wasn't that palatable, so I can't recommend it all that heartily. At about $4 a day, this brand offers the most low-priced food on this list. So I hope this was helpful. Again, human-grade food is not really necessary if you want to give your cat good nutrition, and certainly if you're looking for a low-priced, economical food, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going for human grade. It really comes down to who you're buying from and how that particular company and their suppliers maintain quality standards, not just how they comply with those human manufacturing standards. You can have a great feed grade food, you can have a great human grade food. The difference is that it's just so much easier to make a bad feed grade food because the regulations just aren't there. So I hope that this video was informative and gave you a little bit of a better picture of what human grade food looks like and which options are going to be best. Thanks again for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of human grade food, if this is something you're interested in for your cats, and I will see you in the next video.